Rockefeller in Canada, Part 1. Timeline of infiltration, influence, and quiet control. Open quote. Not through war, but through wealth. Not by vote, but by veto. Unofficial motto of the elite foundation system. Close quote. 1914. The Trojan Horse. Mackenzie King. Open quote. The hidden doorway was a man. Not a policy. Not a bill. But a soul. Close quote. In 1914, William Lyon Mackenzie King, Canada's future longest-serving prime minister, was quietly hired by John D. Rockefeller Jr. Why? To help repair the family's image after the Ludlow Massacre, a deadly strike crackdown in Colorado. King, former labor minister in Canada, was brought in as a labor relations expert, consultant, and PR strategist. He was paid very well. With that money, he bought land in Gatineau Park, building what would become his iconic Kingsmere estate, a heritage site now celebrated in Canada. Open quote, Canada's most cherished political estate was built with Rockefeller oil money. Close quote. This was the Rockefeller family's first deep relationship with Canadian political leadership. 1914-1930, the foundation infiltration model begins. Open quote, give with one hand, control with the other. Close quote. With their trust established, the Rockefeller Foundation began funding Canadian universities, hospitals, medical councils, and research institutions. This strategy mirrored their U.S. takeover of medical education via the Flexner Report. Where they entered: McGill University, Montreal, University of Toronto, public health agencies, medical licensing bodies, hospital boards. Open quote, natural and indigenous healing methods were systematically discredited, labeled unscientific, and replaced with pharma-only protocols, all under the banner of modern medicine. Close quote, this was not charity. It was institutional restructuring. 1930-1950. UN, WHO, and the global alignment begins. Open quote, one government, one medicine, one model. Close quote. By mid-century, Rockefeller funding helped shape the architecture of the World Health Organization, WHO, the United Nations, UN, global development projects in public health and education. Canada became an enthusiastic participant in both, led by leaders already influenced by Rockefeller ideals like Mackenzie King. Open quote, Canada became a testbed for policies aligned with globalist visions, marketed as humanitarian progress. Close quote. Number 1950 to 1980. The technocratic era. Policy by NGO Rockefeller interests moved beyond medicine into education reform, agricultural policy, energy sector influence, environmental regulation, all framed as philanthropic progress, while steering national priorities from behind the scenes. Open quote. Education shifted from developing thinkers to producing compliant, credentialed citizens. Local farming was replaced with industrial agriculture, patented seeds, and sustainability controlled by NGOs. Canada's oil and uranium were absorbed into global extraction networks, not national sovereignty. Close quote. Close tar, 1980-present, WHO plus WEF plus sustainable control. Open quote. Climate panic and pandemics replaced tanks and bullets. Close quote. Rockefeller influence helped birth the global health security model. WHO sets the rules. Philanthropic funded science rubber stamps them, Canada enforces them. In recent years, Canada adopted Agenda 21-2030 policies, climate, land use, depopulation. Canadian institutions received funding through Rockefeller-aligned NGOs. Global crises, e.g. COVID-19, climate change, were used to expand centralized authority. Open quote, public health is now a weaponized control system launched by Rockefeller 100 plus years ago. Close quote. Tash timeline summary, year, event. 1914. Mackenzie King hired by Rockefeller Jr. 1917. Rockefeller Foundation begins Canadian health funding. 1921. King becomes prime minister. 1946. WHO and UN created, both Rockefeller seeded. 1950s-60s. Rockefeller funds Canadian education, vaccines, and food reform. 1970s-2000s. Canadian policies mirror UN, WHO, WEF agendas. 2020s. Technocratic compliance systems dominate Canadian society. Red flags. Rockefeller funding in medical schools, suppression of holistic, natural, and indigenous healing, alignment of Canadian law with UN WHO policies, centralization of farming, media, and medicine, NGO-led governance bypassing voter will. Final word, part 1. Open quote, the price of influence is always control. Close quote. The story of Canada's infiltration is not just about policy. It's about how quietly sovereignty is traded for convenience, trust, and so-called progress. And it started with a handshake in 1914.